Okay, today we're going to start Nandal Amud Aleph, 44. 44a, right? In the middle of the page. Masa v'shlishi v'shvi v'seiser. Okay. A little bit of an issue with the way this Gemara starts, because we're quoting the Mishnah. The Mishnah was on Mem Tes. The Mishnah said that all of these cases where the Nazir is Tameh and he has to restart his count, I didn't say, thank Hashem, I'm able to learn Torah every day. That's we're learning, we should have the base of Migdash.
Amen.
So when the Nazir restarts his count, so it says that he becomes Tameh, he's getting pure, so he has to, they sprinkle on him the third day and on the seventh day, that's the water of the Paraduma. And it breaks the first count. You know, even if he counted half of his days, he has to restart over, right? Even if it was 15 days in when he became Tameh, to restart the whole thing. But he doesn't start to recount until he becomes pure. The Mishnah concludes maybe a karbanaisav and he brings his sacrifices. Only starts to count after he brings his sacrifice. But apparently, our Gemara does not have that version of the Mishnah. Our Gemara just has, and he only starts to count until he becomes pure. Based on that, that's where it concludes. So, the yeshiva had a question. This that it says in the Mishnah, ad sheyita, until it becomes pure. So, what does that mean? Shvikai. So talking about on the seventh day. And the following words, ad avid herb shemesh, was taken out. I think you take out the word ad avid herb shemesh because I think it starts even before that. Rashi has it in there. But I saw in Taisva somewhere that it was taken out. Maybe in the Rashi.
Yeah. And that's written in the English, yeah, because if you remove it, then you can start the counting with the sprinkling and not have to wait.
Starts even in middle.
An extra day.
Starts even in middle of the day.
As soon as he's been sprinkled and immersed.
So any time before sunset.
Yeah, that's the 8th day when he brings sacrifices is the second day.
Second day, isn't that something? So, Umani, and who would this opinion be? This would be the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, which we had earlier. That there was a quarter of pasuk. Kiddush Reishei B'Yemahu, I think. And what Rabbi Eliezer held was that B'Yemahu meant he sanctifies his head on that day. What is that day? It was a machlekes if it was the seventh day of the 8th day. So if we say that he starts his recount on the 7th day, then that could fit with the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Yeah. Or maybe that's not the pshat. Maybe b'shminikai. Maybe we're talking about on the 8th day. Maybe he only starts his count. The whole discussion here is one day off, right? The whole thing is: do you start on the 8th day? Do you start on the 7th day? Recounting 7 days of purity. The 8th day he brings the sacrifice. When does the Nazirus that he was supposed to be counting? When does that start? So it could be that it's on the 8th day. Mani Rabbanan here, and it would be the opinion of the Rabbanan. The question is, who was the author of our Mishnah based on a machlekes we had earlier? That's what we have a question. Well, Tashma, come and listen. Midaktani safe of Mishnah, which means what we're about to learn over here. And coming up, you see there's a Mishnah coming up. So in that Mishnah it says Maschal Umayna Miyad, talking about when someone doesn't have to recount the Nazirus, but is able to resume the Nazirus. We're talking about someone that was a Mitzayra. Morning. Someone that was the Mitzayra. So he wasn't tummy mace. Tummy to a corpse, you have to restart. Yeah, tummy mace, you have to restart the Nazir. Tummy for Mitzayra, while you're a Nazir, you don't count, but when you become pure, you resume the counting that you started before. So that's what the Mishnah says. Haresha, but the Resha, my Adshiyatar. What does it mean Adshiyatar? Adshiyavar Kabanaisa. Over there it says that you start counting immediately. Sounds like the Resha means that you don't start counting immediately. You have to wait for something. What do you have to wait for? Wait for the karbanas. Mani rabbanani damar nazir starad shmini leichayla. Sounds like from the Seifa that there's a contrast. That contrast, besides that, there's a contrast of if you resume or if you have to recount. There's another contrast of if you start immediately or if you start immediately. It sounds like the ratio. You don't start immediately. What do you wait for? You wait for the 8th day. So that's the opinion of the Rabbanan. Okay. New Mishnah. I'm not done with the Tara. Okay. Aval, the Mishnah says, Avalas, look at how the Mishnah starts. That's why he keeps calling it the Seifa, because it's really the one Mishnah with the printer divides it up, I'm sure. You can't start a paragraph. However, Avalas Chaches.
Is that common?
It's not so common to be like this, where you like really start with Aval.
But sometimes it is.
And this is one of them.
No, but that once, but sometimes it is a brand new sentence, right? They said we can't start a sentence with the word "but." That's what they would say. Okay. Avalas Chaches va'Prayis v'Sapras v'Eretz Amim v'Gil v'Adefik v'Yastam v'Oyel v'Vatzames v'Kilim v'Nagemes v'Sfir v'Gomer Alilo Nas Migdaleach. Okay, let's go through each one over here. The Mishnah before said that there's a bunch of types of impurities, all come from Tamei Meis, where the Nazir has to restart. And over here, we're going to learn that there's even impurities where he doesn't have to restart. Okay, let's take a look. First one is schachis. Schachis is what it sounds like. It's schach. It's trees. And the question is, there's a corpse under the tree, and there's a Nazir that's going under that tree as well. For some reason, the Nazir is not going to become Tamei biblically. Now, there's different explanations why. Some say that the branches are spread out too far, so it doesn't. So it wasn't a good. Well, there's one option is that branches are separated, and the corpse is under one, and he went over under another one, and we're not sure if he went under the one of the corpse or not. The suffix, and we're dealing with the Rosh Hashanah, and suffix to Rosh Hashanah is when there's a doubt in the public area. So we say that he's tar. We learn that from the Saita, because the Saita is also called Tama. Other possibilities, maybe because this sort of roof is not strong enough to be considered a roof. You can't put anything on it. Okay, whatever the case is. But price we mentioned before once also that it's a stone that's sticking out of a wall. It's probably the same story of there's stones that are bricks or stones that are sticking out of a wall. Now there's a corpse under one of those stones that are sticking out of the wall, and he walked under one, and we're not sure if he went under the one that the corpse was under. And Beisa Pras. Beisa Pras is a field that had a grave in it, but it got plowed. And Pras, I think, means spread out. Yeah. Right, the fresh means it's spread out. They think the bones got spread out. There's another possibility that pras could also mean broken, with more of an Aramaic word. Pras means that and the bones are broken up. could be another translation of that. What else? The Eretz Amim. Eretz Amim means you come into you leave the land of Israel. The whole Gemara discussing this. Goylol v'adayfik. Goylol v'adayfik is a machlekes Rashi. Taisvis. If it's what each one is. Goylol, according to Rashi, is the cover of a coffin. And Daifik is the sides of the coffin. Basically, the coffin. Talking about the tumma that the coffin gives off under oil. And the Revi'ah Stam, a small measurement of blood. We learned that the Nazir only shaves his head if he has a half a lug of blood, not a quarter of a lug of blood. A half, even though Revi'ah Stam gives off tumma, but for a Nazir, for some reason, it's only a half a lug.
Yeah. In that sense, Rabbeinu Tam is a totally different.
Shot in the Goylel and Daifik. Yeah, I forgot to say that. So Rabbeinu Tam's shot is that the Goylel is the Goylel is the tombstone.
Where do you see the Russian?
Yeah. Now there's two parts to that.
Where does the go in Russia?
No, I was reading Rashi. It's a Rashi in. Yeah.
He quotes the Russian.
Yeah. So there's the stone that's like a wider stone that the matzeva goes up on top of. The bottom stone is called the daifik, and the top stone is called the goylel. Yeah. So what's interesting about this is that you wonder, like, do you have to have that bottom stone and the other stone? Apparently, this goes way back to the two stones of the matzeva. There's a lower one, and they put another one on top of it. This goes way back to Talmudic times, according to Rabbeinu Tam. That's how they did it. Okay. Revi'ah Stam. Okay, now the next phrase, v'oyel v'roiva tzamis. I think you have to read it. Oyel roiva atzamis, and they
got the vav.
Take out the vav of v'roiva. And then what happens is we're talking about the roiva atzamis, which gives off tumma when you touch it.
This quote.
Yeah, no. I have oyel v'roiva atzamis.
Really?
In my
Here it says the oil roiva.
Show me your places. Excellent. Excellent. This is a special halacha that even though it would give off impurity in an ayel, but for some reason the Nazir doesn't have to restart his count. Let me just see what in our original Mishnah. Yeah, in our original Mishnah we had chatzi kavatzamis, which means the double the size. Just like the Revi'ah Stam, these are two measurements which actually do give off tumah, but there's for a special reason the Nazir doesn't have to restart. Okay. And utensils that are touching or that touched the corpse. Could be if it's touching while it's touching, that would be different, but this would touch the corpse. Hanegim means that it's touching right now. We'll see in the Gemara, I think. And okay, so all of these and now we have another case. Right? During the days that the Nazir is counting, because he's becoming pure, he has to count 7 days. And the days that he's actually a Metzira as well. Yes, right, the leper. May Gumray, the days that he's actually tummy. I would have liked that the Mishnah would have said it in the opposite order. May Gumray may Sfirai, because the Gomra comes before the Yom Okay. Whatever the case is, al elo ena nazir megalea. The nazir does not restart the count. Okay, now interesting.
One of the requirements for someone to become tahor after he became a Torah is to shave.
Yeah.
Afterwards, the Kohen checks all this.
Yeah, yeah. So you're asking if he has to shave, then he has to count 30 days. Because at the end of the Nazirs, he's going to need it. The Gemara soon is going to tell us that we're talking about that he doesn't have to recount if he would be able to get 30 days in after that. He can get a full 30 days in, however long is Nazir. So the Gemara is going to tell us that the Nazir was 50 days. And so
I remember there were some circumstances where you only had to recount 30.
right, he only has to do the 30. We're going to count the days of the Mitzayra as part of his 50 because he still has 30 at the end. All right, so you're right about he needs to grow his hair at the end of the Naziris. And you're also right that he had to cut his hair while he was a Mitzayra. But what we're saying is that he doesn't have to restart the 10 days at the beginning because he was a Mitzayra in the middle. Okay.
Wait, so is it still a total of 30 he has to have exclusive of the time he was coming, or it's a total restart of 30 afterwards?
He's always going to need to have 30 days of his hair growing afterwards. The question is if he accepted on himself more than 30 days and he has 30 days at the end, does he need to restart the whole thing or not? So if he would have been tummy mace, he has to restart his whole count. Took on more time than that. He has to restart. Did we say that there was an opinion that says he only has to redo 30 days?
Well, you're saying if he was allowed there to be, let's say, another 60 days.
Yeah.
And then he's restarting, he would have to do
60, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, because the other way, he just finishes more than that, as long as it's 30 plus.
Right. Okay. So, and then,
I'm sorry.
The unicorn.
No, the unicorn was by Adam, but by the Mishkan, it was multicolored animal.
Tachash.
Tachash became.
right.
You know what? I said that to my son. I said, look at this miracle that there was just this animal multicolored in order to make the, clothes. I said, and then after Mishkan was gone, I said to Chazan, he goes, of course it was gone, because the Jews used all those animals up in the desert, used them, and they were extincting it. And I looked at him and I said, that's a good answer. Now I wonder what it was. Was it a miracle? Was it really miracle still? Or was it just, it was saved for that time, and then after it was used, wasn't even?
There's a discussion in the Gemara Shabbos about it.
Yeah.
And Umazer b'shlishi b'shvi, sprinkles on the 3rd and on the 7th day. This is even though he doesn't have to restart. Nevertheless, he still is tamei that he has to become pure. He just doesn't have to restart. The Yainai says Sakaidman, but it doesn't break the first ones. Maschal miyad. He can start immediately. This is the quote that we had in the last Gemara that says that he doesn't have to wait for the carbon. But here he doesn't have to wait for the carbon. He starts immediately when he's pure. The carbon ain't light. It doesn't bring a carbon. Must be these tumas must be rabbinic tumas. The Emes Amru, in truth they said, remember what this means? The Emes Amru, in truth they said. Something else. You one time made a chart of some sort. Whenever the Mishnah says the Emes Amru, it means it's halacha l'Moshe Sinai. It's a tradition from Moshe. Truth they said that's what that phrase means.
Oh, but it could be oral.
It's an oral tradition, right? that Yimei Hazav Hazav Yimei Eskeir Shel Mitzayra Harei Elo Oilam Lai. Not only does it not break the first, that you have to restart the count, but you can actually use those days as part of the days that he needed. In other words, if a Mitzayra is quarantined, but he doesn't become a full Mitzayra, so he never needs to really. So those days, even though he was in quarantine, those days still count. Or a Zav or a Zava, which they're Tamei, but because it's not Tamei Nes, it's just this emission that they have. So those days actually count for the days of Naziris. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to explain these details. This is the schachis. When we said it goes under schach, goes under this overhang tree, the canopy of a tree. That's Ilan Hamesach Alaretz. That's the tree that's hanging over the ground. And the way we explained it is that there's some sort of suffix there. And it's suffix Tamar B'Shus Rabim. Then when there's a doubt in a public property, if he's Tamar, we say that he's Tahar. The price, what a price? Price is Hayetzim and Ageda. Those are stones that are going out of the fence. And it's the same thing. Over here, the way it's described is that it's a fence that's next to the Beis HaKvaros. So that would mean is that if you have like a large stone, you have a stone that's sticking out on this side, and it's sticking out on this side as well. So when you walk underneath, you're walking on the street, that stone is protruding over the cemetery. That could have been someone buried right by the wall. So that's the suffix. So, or maybe it's a suffix of, I'm not sure what the suffix is. There's a suffix over there if he became tummy. And so we say that because he's in the public area, so he's really pure biblically, but the rabbis put a decree on him that he's tummy. And so therefore, he doesn't restart his count. What is that? That's the Goylal and the Daifik. Yeah, that was the opinion that says that the Goylal do they explain that the Goylal is a stone that rolls over the entrance?
It says it's a large stone that was rolled into a grave or burial cave to seal its entrance. It was covered with a large stone, and it could be rolled back.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that we said that the Goylal was the cover, which I thought meant on top, but here it's going on the side.
It's the same thing. If the grave is a cave, then the cover is
cover, right.
And then the two things stop the stone from rolling back.
Right.
But what you were saying was with protruding stone is if you have like a separation, you have something that goes perpendicular to that. If someone is on this side and you have that
Cemetery on the other side.
On the other side,
Right.
that person
Yeah. Well, it would if we know for sure that there's some under it, then he would be coming. But here it's a doubt, so we're going to say that it is only rabbinic. Okay.
There's no discussions just about Tumanaga, or is it also Tumanaga?
This is all Tumas Oil.
Tumanaga. It's saying that the stone, or whatever it is, over potential bones.
Right.
In that area.
Recording in progress. Get caught.
Okay.
You want this?
Around mute.
Okay. Let's do this. Okay.
Excuse me, this is all rabbinic. It's not true.
Yeah, well, either by the trees, it seemed like it wasn't truly a Nile. Maybe it's like weak or something, or maybe there was a doubt which branch the corpse was really under, and he may have gone under the other one. We know it's under the tree. We don't know which side, and if it's tree, and over here also you have a bunch of stones protruding. You don't know exactly which one you went under, which one the corpse was under, and
Well, these seem to be like lesser versions of like the home itself. Like
Right.
you have like protruding wall or like stoppage. It's not
Right.
enough to be like a roof or
Right.
shelter.
right. There's different opinions, so that's why it gets different opinions what exactly it's referring to, or what the doubt is. Beretz Amim. Someone goes into the land of the nations. Iboilu. I have a question. Eretz Amim, land of the nations. Mishum Avira Gazrola, Edom Mishum Gusha Gazrola. It's a Zionistic question. What's the reason why the lands outside of Israel are tamei rabbinically? Is it because the rabbis did not want you to leave Israel, so they just said, if you leave, you're tamei? Or was there actually a real concern that there's bones and corpses all over the Eretz Amim? Why is that? Well, Taisus says, look in Taisus, he says,
Which one? And the sum.
no, in Eretz Amim, go down about 6 lines.
Uh-huh.
It says, "K'mishamal ala meis mipnei meisi mabel." Could be because the mabel, so many people died in the mabel. It could be that there's corpses everywhere, and that, in Israel, the mabel wasn't in Israel. So that would be so because of all of the Jewish people that were killed all over. So is it because there's an actual concern that there's bones in the earth? Is it because just really that the sages didn't want you to leave Israel? So they said, if you go outside, you become tummy. Discourage you.
But you would come tummy regardless if it's boy.
Well, yeah. Did we say that the tumah goes because there were no yidden, and that the tumah before Matan Torah continues? I think we mentioned that.
Yeah.
Where did we had that? Like not too long ago, right? Yeah. 7 years ago.
Why would they use the second answer and say that it was just kind of like, don't get a tattoo, you only buried in the Jewish cemetery, if the Nazir goes out of Eretz Yisrael, he can't bring korbanos and unnazirite himself. So they don't even need that. It's redundant. It's
No.
stuck.
No. If he leaves Eretz Yisrael, and then he walks right back in. He just walks across the border and comes back in. So now, what's the halacha? Does he have to restart his Nazir?
Oh, it's a restart.
Does he have to restart? So we learned in the Mishnah that he doesn't need to restart. He does, but he needs to become pure, and he needs to resume and then he resumes it. So why is that? Why do we have this decree? Well, where's the Gemara going to say that does the Gemara ask L'may nafkamina, or do we have to explain that? The nafkamina is, but whether the Gemara is going to say it or not, the nafkamina is that if someone goes into the lands of the nations, he leaves Israel, but he goes in a box, so he's protected from the dirt, but he's still in the airspace. So if the point is that he's not supposed to leave Israel, well, he left Israel. But if the point, even though he's in the box, was he sealed the air from Israel in a coffee jar.
He's got to be above 10 tefachim, like in a plane.
Yeah, or the same thing would be probably a plane. If he goes in a plane, so he left Israel. But on the other hand, though, he's protected. He's in a box. He's protected from the tumah on the ground.
I don't see how that works because if you have a corpse in a coffin, someone nearby the coffin becomes tummy.
Yeah, that's only
not the case in
because
the reverse.
the person walked over the coffin. But let's say there was a protection over the coffin that stops the tumah from going up, and then the person is up here. So if he's in a box, a contained box, so So he's in the airspace. So if he's not supposed to leave Israel, he would be tummy. But if he's in this box, he's protected from he's insulated from the ground.
He takes an L out for it, takes off, and then the pilot decides to come right back.
Right.
And then land. And it did have, it's irrelevant.
Right.
That would be a modern day example.
Right.
Here's
Right.
where the debate about there. It's on the base. On the bottom. It's whole thing about Israel.
Yeah, and some gusha goes for Allah.
But
So is this a machlekes b'shamai?
19.
Huh.
That was the word that.
Okay. Very good. So now, where it says like that's the Gemara's question. Tashima, so come and listen. You say Yomaza b'shlishi b'shvi, that they sprinkle on him on the third day and on the seventh day. Now, if it's a decree that we don't want him to leave Israel, you don't sprinkle the paraduma ashes for a decree. That this is they put a decree on him, but so it must be elalav mishum gusha. It must be that this is a much more serious tuma. That there's actually a doubt that maybe he went over a corpse, and they have to sprinkle on him. Says like, no, loyla me'malach mishum avira v'chiktani ashara. This is wiggled its way out of this question. The Mishnah says that we have a whole bunch of these cases. Chachis and praise, all of these. What happens? He doesn't have to recount, but he does. They do sprinkle on him on the third and seventh day. He said, "See, it's a very serious tumah. Eretz Amim. They sprinkle on the water." But he said, "No, that was just talking about those cases where it was relevant to sprinkle on him. But in this case, they don't have to sprinkle on him." I was talking about all the other cases, but this case was not okay. Hachinam mistabed also makes sense. Why? Because it says in vessels that touch the corpse. Hani kelim b'nei hazaninu. Are these kelim considered? Are these kelim things that you have to sprinkle the paraduma? You don't sprinkle the paraduma on the kelim. You sprinkle the paraduma on the person. The kelim go to the mikveh, right? They sprinkle the paraduma water on vessels or just on people? Because the way that you could read this, you could so they did sprinkle it on vessels. So the pshat over here is not the kalim. Over here, the pshat is that someone, definitely say is the
Yeah, just wait.
So whenever it refers to something regarding the air, that refers to chutzlars.
Here, Eretz Amim is referring to the but it could also be tama of airspace in a whole bunch of other contexts. It could be in a klicheres, the airspace. It could be in an oil amesis, the airspace. There's other contexts though. So what this would mean over here is that if someone touches a vessel that touched the corpse, the person doesn't need to be sprinkled. We're talking about the person over here, not the vessels. We're talking about the nazir that touched the vessel. Why? Because the corpse is a avi avaisa tuma, a grandfather of tuma. The vessel is an avatam, and the person that touched it is a rishon. When the rishon only has to go to the mikveh, he doesn't need to get sprinkled the paraduma. So hani kelim b'nei hazaninu. You see already that it doesn't apply to every single case. It only applies to those cases that it's relevant. So for our case as well, for Eretz Amim, we'll say it wasn't relevant the third day and the seventh day sprinkling. So I wasn't referring to that. There's no proof. Let us say that this discussion, or the question that we have, what's going on in Eretz Amim, let's say that it's really a machlekes tanaim. Goes like this. Hanichnas l'Eretz Amim b'shita teva migdal. Yeah, this is it. Someone enters into the land of the nations in a box, another type of box, or a tower. Well, Rabbi Mitame, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda Mitar. Rabbi says that the person's Tameh. Now, if he says he's Tameh, what does that mean? He's protected from the floor because he's in a box. It must be that Rebbe holds that it's because of the airspace. We don't care how you got there, but we don't want you to leave Israel, and you left, so you're Tameh. And Rabbi Yosef Yehuda says he's tar, even though he left. Why? Because you left in a way in this scenario where you were able to avoid the tumah coming from the ground. So my love, Rabbi Savar Mishum Avir, Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Savar Mishum Gusha. Rabbi Yosef Yehuda says it's because of the dirt. Gush means the like a clod of dirt. The Gemara says lie. That's not what's happening. The Kuli Alma Mishum Gusha, everyone holds it's because of the dirt, and in the dirt is the bones. So now the question is, how does Rebbe say that he's tameh? Rabbi Yehuda says he's tahar because he was protected. How does Rebbe say he's tameh if the problem is the impurity that's coming from the ground? So we would say Mar Savar Oyel Zaruk Shmei Oyel. Rabbi Yehuda holds that because the box was in motion, so it's not considered a protection. A box in motion remains in motion. It's not considered an ayal.
Oh, so
Well,
can we
that's sort of if it's mahalach ka'imedami.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
mahalach.
why I'm not a sofa. Okay.
so could we apply this to the case we made with the airplane?
Yeah. According to this opinion, an ayal zara, if you say it's shmei ayal, then he would be considered protected. Marsava, Rebbe would hold lo shmei ayal, that he's not protected because it's in motion. It's only a stationary ayal that's really considered an ayal. You see, it's interesting because an ayal, you could do it the other way. You could be, oh, this bird went flying, a bird with big wingspan went flying over him in a corpse. So if you say ayal zarak shmei ayal, so then it would come out the opposite of what we're saying. Rebbe would say that an ayal zarak is shmei ayal. Rebbe would say not shmei ayal, and it's going to be tahar, right? You'd be pure. Over here, the tumah is outside, is being protected because of the oil. Rebbe says he's not protected because it's not considered tumah. Okay. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda is Rabbi Yehuda Bar Abbilai's son. So it's a contemporary of Rebbe. Okay, now the following small piece of Gemara, there's two ways of reading it. One way is, it says V'hatanya. Now because V'ha could mean and but, should mean that this would be a question. But V'ha could also mean and this. V'ha Tanya. And this is exactly what it was taught in a brisa, and it's not a question, it's a proof. There's two ways of reading this Gemara. Based on that, we're going to change the girsa. Which one should we do? Let's do that's the proof. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says, Teva shehi maleya kalim, a box that's full of vessels, v'zarka al pnei hames. We're supposed to take out the word ba'ayel. And it was thrown over a corpse. So it's tmeya. It's tameh. Now, what would that mean? Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says, well, everyone holds, the whole question over here is ayel zara. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda says ayel zara is shmei ayel. So why over here is it tameh? It should be protected. The answer is because it's considered a weak sort of it's too flimsy to protect. Let's read the next line. But if it was placed on top of an animal, you notice how I adjusted that? If it was placed on top of an animal where even though it's in motion, but nevertheless it's still tahira. Why? Because Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda holds that oil zarak is shmei oil, even though it's menachas al gabei behema. Okay, if this is the case,
Just summarize that.
yeah, that there's two types of oil zarak. There's one oil zarak that's being thrown, and there's another oil zarak that's just in motion because it's on top of an animal that's moving. And if it's on top of an animal, then Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's considered an oil and it protects him from any tumah that's surrounding. That's exactly the way we were learning before. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion.
Just regardless if it's in a box or anything, it's just on an animal.
No, it's in a box on top of an animal. But it's in motion, right? The animal's moving and the box is moving along with it. Now, yeah, that's Rechel Kamala. Now, what happens now is that the word Ella needs to be dropped. The following word, you have to drop that Ella. Ella would be if it would have been a question. If it would have been a question, we would drop we would say, oh, okay, big problem. And so we would say, Ella, we need to have a new teretz. Okay, let's read this again as a question. All right, we read it now that we dropped the word Ella, and Rabbi Yehuda is actually the one that holds that it's that oil zarak is considered an oil, and it protects him. That's what it means, menachas. It's an oil zarak. You read it again. Tanya, but it was taught in a brisa, not like the Rabbi Yehuda Teva Shimalei Kelim Zarak Hameis Tmeya. You see, an oil zarak is tamei. It's not considered an oil. But if it's on the ground, then it's tahira. The kasha is from the tmeya. What are you talking about? Ella, we need a new pshat. Kuli alma that everyone holds mishamavira. Before we said everyone holds because of the ground. The new pshat is we can't say that because it didn't work. We'll have to say everyone holds because of the airspace. And so what's going to be the machlokes? We'll see in a second. But just let's go back. If this is not the kasha, if this was the way that it was a proof. So what we would do instead of the Ella, we would say right now, the Iba Yasema, and if you want, I can tell you the opposite. I could say the Ella turns into Iba Yasema, which that lamed on top of in between the two olives was actually like a quotation marks. Yeah. So it turned into Iba Yasema, Ella. Yeah. Everyone holds that it's because of the airspace. Okay, now either way, here is where we're holding that it's because of the airspace. Now, who's the question on now? If it's the airspace, then the question now is on Rabbi Yehuda. How does he say that we're tar? The person in the box is tar. Rabbi, I understand why he says he's tamei. Why is he tamei? Because he left Israel. I don't care what you're wrapped up in. Marsavar Rabbi Yehuda holds kivan delay shchicha legos beirabanan. The rabbis made a decree not to leave Israel. They said anyone that leaves Israel is tamei, but they didn't make that decree in an abnormal case where the person is in a box, in a suitcase or something. That they didn't make that decree. It's such a random case. They didn't make that decree. They made the decree on the normal case where someone walks out of Israel. So there's no decree. That's why Rabbi Yehuda says that he's pure. Marsavar, Rebbe holds, Alfagav Leishchicha goes berabanan. Even though it's not so common, but the rabbis made a decree, and even on those strange cases. And here, Vahatanya, you have to read this as a proof in Chusa. And is tar. If it's in a strange case where he leaves the land of Israel in a box, today an airplane would not be the strange case. But if he leaves Israel in a box, then he's tar. But Bekarana Besfina, Beskaria is tame. If he leaves on a wagon or in a boat, Iskaria, I think, is a large boat. Do they explain the word Iskaria in there? What is it?
Raft.
Oh, a raft. Oh, it's not a large boat.
Here it says masted ship.
Masted ship. That is a
One
large
is a
boat.
boat,
So how
yeah.
did you get a raft? The Goinim read this as Iskadia from Skedia, meaning a raft. This which means a mast, a wooden post on which sails.
So it still is.
So it's not a.
Maybe like the Egyptians have on the Nile. They have three pole things, one little pole.
He did it. It's very fancy over there. He has all those oars.
It's oars and a
That's
mast.
more.
And a mast. Oh. Yeah, where's that going? Oars. Yeah, I would not have been.
I was not so for spelling doesn't count.
And they make it out of ore. And they probably usually use
That'd be
wood.
too
Though.
heavy.
They use wood. Okay. So it's tummy. Why? Because that's normal. That's the normal way of traveling is tummy, and the abnormal way is tar. So you see, that's it fits. Who would that opinion be? That would be the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. It says in the abnormal way is going to be tar. Iba Yasema, if you want, we could go back. It's missing a small phrase over here. Iba Yasema Mishum Gusha, should have said. You could go back and say that it's because of the dirt, that in the dirt is bones. But over here, in other words, now what we're doing is we're explaining the distinction between the wagon and the wagon boat and raft to going in a box. Why is there a difference? Because if someone is going in a box, is it easy to put your head out of the box? So on a wagon, it's fine, it's easy. So it goes like this. Shema Yetzi Reisha Veruba L'Sham Pligi. This machlek is about if he's going to put his head out. Tanya, and we have a brisa that supports this. Tanya has benichusa. Because since it's not easy for him to put his head out of a window or out of a little hole in the box because the box is sealed, so then we don't make a decree. So in other words, it's like this. He's totally protected, but they made a decree that he should be tummy anyway because maybe he's going to put his head out of the window. So if it's going to be a wagon, so yeah, he's going to be putting his head out, possibly because that's easy to put his head out. If it's going to be a box, then it's not until he actually does it. Once he does it, then it's going to be yeah. Makes it look like outside the box is tummy. So in the box. Okay. Now, umaschel umayna. Here we're talking about the Mitzaira resumes his count after he becomes pure. Amar Rav Chizda. Chizda says, Laishanu ella b'nazirus muetes. This was only taught with a small nazirus. What we said is that you can't count the days of the counting itself. We can't count the days of the this is Maskul Miyad. This is by the Nazir, not the Nazir that became a Mitzayra. He said the days of his purification and the days of his taras do not count for his Nazirus. But he resumes his Nazirus. So comes along Rav Chizda and says that's only by a Nazirus Muetas where you don't count the days of the Mitzayra as part of it. But Abel ben Nazirus Meruba, but if the Nazirus would be a big Nazirus, then Mislak Nami Salkanlite, it even is counted for him. So not only does he not have to restart, but even the days that he wasn't really like a Nazir are still counted in the Nazirus. Master of Shravya. Shravya has a question. Starts to count again. And it doesn't negate, he doesn't have to restart from the beginning. He includes those days that he had before. But what's the case? Ilim ben Nazirus Muetas. If we're talking about that, it was a small Nazirus. So 1 second, Jonathan, this is the question. Kabay Gidel Seir. What do you mean? He doesn't have to, he can use 15 days from before and 15 days from now. But it takes 30 days for the hair to be considered Gadol Pera, that he needs to, that he needs to grow. It's only considered a growth of hair if it's 30 days. So, but now you're telling me that he only needs 15 days because He had to shave after he was a mitzvah during the purification. And he can count 15 days from before, 15 days afterwards. But after he shaved, he's not going to get a 30-day hair growth in 15 days. So it must be Ella Lav Naziris Meruba. Must be talking about that it's a long Naziris. Now, if it's a long Naziris, you said Uktani Maschel Miyad, that he resumes. Resumes means that you weren't counting those days. According to Rav Chizda, you don't resume, you never stop. That's his kasha. He asked the question, he also gave the answer. The Naziris Bas Chamishim Yom. We're talking about a Naziris that's 50 days. Okay. Yeah.
40.
Yeah, let's see. The Yosef Eshin. He sat, that means I guess he was a Nazir for 20 days. This Yalda Beit Tzaras. And he got Tzaras. Megaleach Tzaratai. He has to shave his head. V'hada Yosef Tlasin Yaimin. Then he has to wait another 30 days. The Nazir, Tlasin Yaimin the Nazir. This legid l'seir, because now I'll have 30 days. So what happened was, he's a Nazir for, let's say, 20 days or whatever. He had 20. He's supposed to be he's a Nazir for 50 days. So he starts 20 days, everything is good. Then he gets Tzaras. Tzaras lasts however long it lasts. Now he gets pure from the Tzaras. Now he has to count 30 days. Counts those 30 days. So he doesn't count the days that he was a Mitzvah, because then he won't have enough hair. His hair won't grow for 30 days. So he really needs a full 30 days, not because the Naziris didn't work while he was a Mitzvah. The Naziris really worked while he was a Mitzvah. 30 days is a side point for to get the hair to grow. So that's where we're explaining Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda says that really the days of the Mitzvah actually do count. It's just that you have a secondary issue of getting the hair to grow for 30 days. That's why he said that you restart it, that's only in a small Naziris. But in a large Naziris, where let's say it was a Nazir for 100 days, and after 20 days, he gets Tzaras. And the Tzaras lasts for, let's say, another 50 days. So now it's 70 days through, becomes pure. So after 30 days of his hair growing, he's already completed his 100 days and everything is good. So that's now.
Another 30 after the 50 days, right?
Count another 30 after the 50,
Yeah.
but he had 20 before. That would be a total of 100. And he would keep those 50 days of the Tzaras is going to work as well. Okay, let's leave it over here. The next piece takes us into
Those are all, we
page.
don't even pay attention to. It's irrelevant.
Right. He never has to stop. Have a good day, Jimmy. Nachum is back.
All right,
Okay.
It wasn't on before, let's see if we can-